Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and I just watched Time Bandits last night for the first time in 35 years? Maybe 30, yeah, probably 35 years. Wow. So on my other channel I talk a lot about how I don't like nostalgia. In fact, I despise it because I think of it's a weakness. I think it's really dumb, like voting straight ticket. It's one of those things like things are better because they're from the old days. It's like, shut up, Grampy. Things are better because they're better. It doesn't matter what time they come from. I often talk about how when I watch these older movies, I'm shocked that I can watch 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time without my OCD making me go check my email or something. Whereas modern movies, I sometimes literally watch them 1 minute at a time over 3 days because they just can't hold my interest. It's just this visual cacophony of mush. Their Avengers Endgame is coming onto DVD, so I'm getting all these Facebook ads. Yeah, I'm old. I talk about movies from the early 80s and I still use Facebook. But I'm watching these 80s movies shot on film and everything is so distinct and crisp and clear. And then I'm watching these fight scenes from the end and it's just all of this mush. And my brain starts spacing out in a 5-second clip. But anyway, Time Bandits is unique for a couple of reasons. Number one, usually when you talk about that Quirky movie from the 1980s, it was either a super flop or it just barely made any money. So that's why we never saw a sequel, like Buckaroo Banzai, something like this. This one, on the other hand, was a freaking huge hit. One of the things I really like about Wikipedia these days is, on that first section in the box where they say, oh, this person directed it, this is the screenwriter, the studio, when it came out. When did they start doing this? I love it. They put the budget and they put the box office. Now sometimes they put the domestic box office and sometimes they put the worldwide, but you get some kind of gauge. Was this a hit? Time Bandits was a freaking massive hit. $5 million budget, made $42 million. This is like in 1981. The typical thing is how you make a profit is you triple the budget. So everything over 15 million was a profit. So they made more than freaking double profit. That's insane. I don't really remember it when it was in theaters because I would have been like 8. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was rated PG. Yeah, there's no reason it would have been rated R. They didn't have PG-13 until like 1984, I think. I think Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was what they created PG-13 for, if I remember correctly. But I just remember my buddy, my quote rich buddy, he was rich because his family had HBO. HBO was not cheap. If I remember, like in the early 80s, it would have been like 50 or 60 bucks. And that was just for HBO. It didn't have HBO 1 and 2 and 3. It didn't come with a package. It was just HBO for like 50 bucks. This is back when it was like $3 to see a movie. Financially, it didn't even make sense. Unless you watched like 4 movies a day. Yeah, you were rich if you had HBO in 1981. What the hell were you thinking? Put some money away. Oh my gosh, go invest in Apple stock. Oh my gosh. Shame on you. I'm throwing a lot of shame and shade. I'm throwing it on people who vote straight ticket for anything and for people who had HBO in 1981. Could have been given that to starving Ethiopians in Cambodia. But anyway, does anyone get that reference? But anyway, I'm sorry. I just saw a water tower that has like a shroud over it. And I'm assuming the shroud has something to do with, what do you call it? Like the heat, because it's like drinking water or something like that, emergency drinking water. But it just looks like it's like a very religious water tower. Getting back to Time Bandits, this movie holds up like a freaking Roman aqueduct. So one of the things that happens, 2 things that happen, 3 things happen, 4. when I watch a movie that I haven't seen since I was a kid. Number one, I find out that my memories are almost completely false. This happened with Dark Crystal, where I only saw bits and pieces of it, and then I just made up a much better movie in my head. So the first time I was like having a fit. I was like, no, this isn't it. There's a scene at one point where there's like this crystal chamber that turns you into like kind of like this mindless slave. And in my movie in my head, like almost all of the movie revolved around capturing people and putting them into that and escaping from it. It's like 5 minutes of the actual movie. So I was like, what are the drapes? Why just a telescope? What's going on? No, I don't like this, and it should stop. The other one is they just don't live up. They're just not as good as you remember. I mean, Last Starfighter, I remember. If kids could have nominated movies for Oscars, I would have nominated that. I mean, I didn't see it in theaters like pretty much everything else from the 80s. I saw it at my rich friend's house. Oh my God. I mean, it was solid. It was okay. But it wasn't like freaking amazing. Oh my gosh. Time Bandits. They should re-release Time Bandits. I know they're putting, I think like in 3 weeks they're bringing Star Trek the Motion Picture, and they're bringing it back into theaters at the Fathom Events. Oh my God. Can you imagine if they did Fathom Events for Time Bandits? Wow. Me and two other people would see it, but we'd have a great time. So Time Bandits is a Terry Gilliam movie. Terry Gilliam was a real big deal in the 80s. He was kind of like famous for all these artsy financial disasters. I think he directed one of the Monty Python. You know, they had Life of Brian, but I think it was one of the other guys who directed some of them. He might have directed Holy Grail, but I don't think he directed Life of Brian, which I think is far superior to Holy Grail. I freaking love Life of Brian. It's freaking hilarious. So it's about these time bandits who the funny thing is, when you first meet them, you assume they've been doing this for like 1,000 years because they have all these crazy costumes that looks like they've been jumping through time forever. But it turns out it's their very first job. So they work for the supreme being, government named God, most likely. Although they don't say God and they don't say the devil, they say the supreme being and evil, which I thought it's nice. It kind of like, it gives a little bit of separation where you can just kind of relax and have fun with it. But they worked for him, and their charge was shrubbery, I believe. And then they designed, I think it was trees and shrubbery. And then they designed a tree that was 600 foot tall, bright red, and smelled terrible. So they got demoted down to shrubs. And then they just got pissed. So they basically stole a map of all these holes in reality, and they said, we can jump through this and we can steal. So they meet this kid, Kevin, who's kind of, I don't know, like a proto Harry Potter type of character. He's like neglected by his parents, wishes for a different life. He actually really doesn't have any powers. He's just like a regular kid. He's supposed to be, it was a movie made for kids, so that was like your entry. But, I'd like to be Kevin, and I'd go on adventures with the Time Bandits. So the Time Bandits arrive. One of the things that I love about this movie is, oh my gosh, in the first 3 minutes, like freaking like 30 minutes of movie time right now happens. Like, if you don't like a scene, like there's like a scene with like an ogre and his wife in a boat. I'm not really crazy about that scene. Just wait 5 minutes. They'll be in a different time, a different place, different costumes. So it's kind of episodic for the first hour. They meet Kevin. They're running from the Supreme Being who wants the map back. And then they're just kind of going to different times and getting little adventures. They go to Napoleon, and they end up becoming generals, and they rob him. And Robin Hood, that one's hilarious because for some reason, the funny thing is, I grew up in the quotes hippie days of the 70s and early 80s, and I remember pop culture always being very positive about the hippies. You know what I mean? They were kind of like borderline negative, like 60s, early 70s. I don't remember those days. I just from watching movies and TV, but I remember the vast majority of things being overwhelmingly positive hippies. But I knew hippies in real life, and even as like a 7-year-old, I didn't like them. So there's this weird kind of counterculture thing in Monty Python. Like, they all had long hair, and they would make fun of the establishment, but they would really make fun of counterculture a lot. So they have, the Robin Hood and the Merry Men. They're they're redistributing wealth, except for when they redistribute it, they punch the poor in the face. And then Robin Hood is presented as this bland spokesman who just says trivialities. He reminded me of kind of like like Prince Charles, when he does that, when he greets a bunch of actors, you'll see him and you can see they're all nodding and smiling, but you can see he's just saying bland platitudes and like he doesn't, Brad Pitt, you did a wonderful job in this movie. Quentin Tarantino, you did a wonderful. Like they're just saying, like 2 minutes later, they don't even remember who they met. So then it starts to become more of evil. Once the map of I forget, they had a very specific name for the map. It was like the map of everything or something like that. The funny thing is, it was just a map. And I was like, how does it show everything in the universe? And then my little headcanon is that it's written on top of each other. And whatever you need to see kind of comes to the front. Because you can see like these bold, it's kind of like a blueprint. You can see these bolder lines in the foreground, but it looks like there's kind of like less bold ones in the background. That's how I explain it, because they're always like pointing. And also, I don't know why, but I really like the texture of the map. It seemed to be on cloth. There was a lot of like rolling it and folding it. But it didn't look like paper. It had to go through a lot. So I think it was on cloth. But I really want, I'm sure somebody's made a replica of it, but I guarantee they have not made a replica of it on the material it was made, as a prop for the movie. Again, getting into everyone looks freaking amazing, except for the Titanic. They have all these great scenes, the Time Bandits have these cool time traveler costumes, and then they'll go to Napoleon days. They'll be in this castle. It looks great, and then the final Dr. Evil, or not Dr. Evil, Evil's castle looks fantastic, and then they go to the Titanic, and it's just one set. And it looks like something you would see on a Disney Channel sitcom, That's So Raven. It's the cheapest set ever. You're like, okay, we get it. Some scenes you just gotta save money to spend more in the other scenes. But basically, they have the map. The Time Bandits want to be rich, but then they're running from the Supreme Being. They get tricked into going to Evil's lair, and then. God, just the whole thing is freaking great. At one point, they're in this cage, and they're suspended from, I don't know, infinity. The rope just goes on forever, and then falling down goes on forever. It's them, and then there's 30 feet to another cage, and then 30 feet to another, and then a little ledge. And then there's 5 minutes of just them figuring out how to get from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And I gotta say, nobody makes movies like that. They just would have all jumped. Oh, we have magical jumping powers. You know what I mean? Nobody makes scenes like that. And then at the end, they get into this big battle where it's all these people from different times, and one of the Time Bandits gets turned into a pig. One gets killed. By the way, now. I don't even know. I got to make up a term. Awesome dudes. Okay, so you know what I mean? When I say awesome dudes, nobody can... Oh, wait. Awesome people. Awesome people. Nobody can get offended by the phrase awesome people. Because I always forget, do you say midget? Do you say dwarf? Do you say little person? I forget which. I think little person is the correct term. That seems to me the most demeaning. Why don't you just say half a person? Half a man. But awesome people, you get used to them kind of being played as jokes. The thing that's awesome about this, awesome, is they do have goofball things of them all bunching up and falling down and fighting. But there's real acting. And one thing I remembered is, as a kid, I was absolutely enamored of Randall. Randall is the leader. He's a very, very interesting character. He's 3'1". He's got a distinct personality. He's kind of haughty and selfish, but still weirdly a good leader. He's got this pride. He has this thing, he wants to come up in the world. There's this great scene where they've had a major score, and now they're on the Titanic, and it seems like they've traded their, physical wealth for some sort of, I don't know, chips at the bar or something like that. So they're all in tuxedos, smoking cigars, and he's got his chest puffed out, and he's really proud of himself. And he's talking to the kid. He's like, you're me. You're a doer. You're a striver. You don't settle for less. And it's almost impossible to not like love this character the way he's portrayed. Some of the characters aren't given, some of the Time Bandits aren't given much personality, but at one point, one of them dies, and the other one, like, it's like this really emotional scene. He's basically, he's a awesome person. He's trying to fist fight the devil. He's just like, you killed my friend. It's on. And he's really emotional. He's crying, and all the other ones are trying to hold him back, but they're emotional. Like, you get it's like really emotional scenes from awesome people who are usually just kind of used as visual gags in movies. Oh, look, they're shorter than other people. Well, yeah, when you're an awesome person, you're shorter than, most adults and a lot of kids. That's kind of the deal. But the special effects, I mean, I would say 90% of them hold up fantastically, and the other one are kind of like fun, hey, remember when they would just flip a negative to make things look weird? Hey, they just reversed footage. Ooh, someone's jumping out of water. But they do some, good miniatures for some, like the evil castle. They go to actual castles in Europe, which is cool. The period costumes look freaking fantastic. Like I said, most of even like they have these little portal doors that open up. Oh my gosh, they look great. I mean, it's a simple, it's just a black square with a little iridescent blue, border on it. But oh gosh, it just looks fantastic. So it ends with evil being defeated, and then Kevin's parents being killed. But yeah, it was a little weird one. Usually, like the parents will like learn their lesson, and the parents weren't really that bad. They were just kind of not paying attention to him, but they explode, and I think the implication is that Kevin had met a better father figure, Agamemnon, Sean Connery. So then we see Sean Connery in that scene. So I think the sequel would have been that Sean Connery adopted him, and that was a better father, and Kevin's fine. But go check it out. I think I had to pay like $2.99 on YouTube to rent it for 2 days. Oh my gosh, it is so worth it. If you got kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, you're gonna love it. They're gonna love it. No, there are no nostalgia goggles necessary. It is absolutely rock solid. There is a reason it was a solid hit, even with normies. And normies were they weren't very experimental. There was a lot of good movies that just flopped back there. Like, oh, that's weird. That's weird. But go check it out. Time Bandits, $2.99 on YouTube. I'm sure it's probably the same price on Amazon Prime Video. Thanks for watching. And the next movie I'm going to review is probably one of those, what is it? Hayao Miyazaki? It's either going to be Spirited Away or something else. I forget the other one. That's going to be one of them. Thanks for watching. Bye.